Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Effects Maniac. This is Syed Mahmoud Amiri again, and I am back with another cool tutorial. So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to create this beautiful wall crumble effect using Tyflow and Phoenix FD. So we're going to be creating the destruction with Tyflow and the smoke or the dust with Phoenix FD. And before getting into today's video, I do want to give a special shout out to my Patreons who helped me tremendously. And without you guys' support, this wouldn't be possible. So you can, if you want to join my Patreon, you're more than welcome. You'll get some awesome project files, and you can also join for free. Check it out, and if you like it, you can join. And I have to mention something else. Today's effect is, of course, inspired by the legend of the After Effects world, Andrew Kramer. He did this effect almost 13 years ago in 2011. So yeah. Alright, so he did this effect using After Effects, and we're going to do it using 3D Studio Max after 13 years. So what a shame. But we're going to go and get started with this. So here I am inside 3D Studio Max, and I'm going to show you guys from the start. So I'll create my text here first, or whatever logo or whatever thing you're having. So I'm going to go start with the text, and I'll type in Effects Maniac or whatever you want to type in. And as you can feel from my voice, I got a little flu, but it's okay. I'm going to change the font to Typograph Pro, and I'm going to select this and scale it down a little, and we'll add the extrude modifier to it. So I'm just going to extrude it a little bit, and then we can just go ahead and scale it using the scale tool. So I'm going to scale it up, and I'm going to select it, hit A, and hit E to rotate it 90 degrees. All right. So right now I'm going to move it up, and in the front view, I'm going to create my wall here so that it'll basically peel off of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into standard primitives. I'm going to create a box. So I'll drag it down here. Make sure it's big enough and thick enough. So I'm going to move it back. We don't want it to be that thick. It's okay. And we certainly don't want the text to be very thick because we don't want thick pieces. Right here you can see that we don't have much of a thick pieces, but it's up to you. So what I'm going to do is, what is this? Close this. I'm just going to make it as much needed, and I'll move it in into the wall, and so that it just moves in parallel with the wall. So just like that, make sure you get it as close as possible. And then what I'm going to do is just Control V this one, or clone it, or you can just right click and clone. I'm going to say copy, and I'm going to hide this, and I'll select this wall layer, and I'm going to go into standard primitives, click on compound primitives, pro boolean, start picking, and I'm going to pick this. So now we have an empty cutout of the text inside the wall. So if you go into high quality, we have the shading here. So, and what we can do now is unhide all, and we have the other text that we just copied perfectly sitting on top of that. So as you can guess right now, we will be fracturing this text and, doing the destruction on this. And then we're going to do the Phoenix stuff. And one thing that I want to mention is that I'll show you guys a very cool technique to be able to use in Phoenix. So you can see that as long as the pieces doesn't move, we don't have any smoke here. So I'm going to show you guys how to set it up using Phoenix FD. So it's a little trick that I'll show you along the way. So I'm going to go back here and go into creating my Tyflow. I do want to set a camera view first because I don't want to be jumping around. So I'll just Control C, create a camera, move in a little bit, just move it here, right? Hit P again to go to perspective view. And I'm going to create my Tyflow. So I'll create the Tyflow layer and open the editor. And if you're new to Tyflow or you don't know anything about destruction or anything about Tyflow, you can go into my channel Effects Maniac, go down here. I have an absolute beginner's tutorial for Tyflow that you can check out. And then I have a Tyflow destruction basics. So I talk about all the things that you need for destruction and for the beginners of Tyflow. And I do have a lot of Tyflow tutorials, so you can go ahead and check it out. Alright, so I'm going to go back here and I'll add a birth object, and what it does is it creates objects from your scene and converts them into particles. So I'm going to pick this one and I'm going to select the layer and hide it. I'll click the color and maybe change it to yellow because we can see it better. Yellowish, just like that. And now I want to fracture this object because now it's just a single piece. So I'm going to go and add the Voronoi fracture modifier or operator. And then if I hit F4, we can see the outlines and you can see a little fractal lines across the face of the object. So I'm going to set it to alot, so set it to 1,000 pieces. The number of points is basically saying how many pieces you're going to have. So I'm just going to change the color to something like blue so that we can see it better. Yeah. So you have a lot of pieces. And what I want to do is use another object to activate the destruction of the wall, bit by bit. So what I'm going to do is create another box, and it's going to be right here and this thick. We don't want it to be high quality, just standard. And make it a bit thinner and hit N or turn on auto key. Move to like about 80 or 100 frames and move it through the face of the object so that it will basically be used as an activator for the destruction of the particles. And what I'm going to do is right click on this, go to object properties, see display as box, and then we don't want it to be renderable, so just turn it off. So now it won't be distracting in our scene, and it will not also render. So that is fixed. I'm going to go back to Tyflow and I will add. So right now the pieces are just sitting there, they're doing nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'll add a surface test, and it's basically testing for a surface. If it's true, then we're going to go to another event. I'm going to set the surface type, test type, to volume inside. So if the particles are inside this volume that we're going to pick, and that is the box that we just created, we're going to move into another event. And the other event is going to be the physics shape operator. The physics shape is basically converting the particles into rigid bodies. So I'm going to drag this here, and now you can see that they're falling down. But a couple of things are happening here. They're falling down, they're pretty cool, and they're colliding with the ground floor. But the problem is they're not colliding with the object itself, the wall itself. So I'm going to add a physics collision as well and put it down here. So now they will collide with the floor as well. Or if you want to be more, oh, we didn't pick the object. What am I doing? We have to pick the wall here to be able for the particles to connect with it or collide with it. So now they're just working perfectly fine. But the other thing we need to do is we'll add a rotation as well, and it'll make it a lot more better. So as you can see here, they're just chipping off the wall. So that's what the rotation does. You can also add like a spin for continuous rotation, but I think the rotation will do just fine. So yeah, they're moving through and they're peeling it off. If it's a little fast, what you can do is just hold down Alt and Control and right click and drag to be able to move your timeline and make it bigger. And then you can select this object and increase the duration that it takes for it to move across the surface of the object, and it'll be a lot more slower. And then you can go into time configuration and turn off real time so that you will see and it'll process all the frames. And again, at the end, we're going to, slow it down because this is really fast. And I had to slow down the simulation to be able to get this effect. Okay, we're going to do that. But for now, what I'm going to do, and then at the end, we're also going to add these extra smaller pieces after we do the Phoenix dust simulation, because if you do it now, it'll take a lot of time. All right, so I'm gonna go back here. Why does this keep popping? It's just annoying. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're going to create the Phoenix dust from these particles to be emitted. So what I'm going to do is I will go into Phoenix FD and go into Fire and Smoke, and I'm going to drag it here from the top view and move it up just like that. You do want to make sure that it only encompasses the area that you need it, because we don't want it to be bigger. Don't do it more than you need to do, basically. So just make it a little narrow, move it across, and make sure it contains the whole object, and we can move it here. All right. So how do we convert these particles into Phoenix, source? So we need a Phoenix fire and smoke source, and we're going to drag it here. And we need to select our Tyflow. But right now, we cannot select our Tyflow. Even if we do, and if we run the simulation, where it starts, let's see, it starts at frame 49. So I'm going to go into my simulation object, the Phoenix Fire object, simulation. We're going to start frame to 49. And if I even play this, you will see that nothing happens. And the reason is Phoenix is not recognizing the Tyflow particles as a source. So what you need to do is you need to go to Tyflow, and you need to go to interfaces and enable particle interface. And what that will do is it will allow the Tyflow particles to be recognized by this source. Okay, so now if I play this, if I run the simulation, you will see that the smoke and the fire is being generated off of these particles. Two things here. First off, we don't want, if I stop this and I go into my object, I'll go down to the preview and I'll enable GPU preview. First off, we don't want fire. And the second thing is we don't want the smoke to be generated until and unless the pieces are falling down, because that's not what we want, and that's not realistic at all. So that's what I was talking about. You only get the dust or the smoke only when the particles are chipping off and dropping to the floor. So how can we do that? Well, there's a way to do it. And first off, if I select my fire, I will turn off temperature because we don't want fire. And I can go into the outgoing velocity and increase it to like 20 because we want it to be a bit more, a bit more dust to be falling down. And the other thing, there's this modifier thing, okay? So if I click on this and I'll add a modifier, and I'll go into speed, okay? So we just need to select this X value and set it to 1 because we just want a little bit of a movement in the simulation, and that will take care of the, smoke not rising before the particles to be moving. So right now you can see that the smoke is only being generated when the pieces are falling down, okay? And that's looking pretty nice, I guess. Yeah. So we can even go and like set it to select this, set it to like 0.6 because we don't have a lot of movement. So we'll see here. Yeah, so now they're being generated off of the particles right away. And the other thing we need to do is we're gonna go here and go to the grid. Of course, we're gonna increase the resolution a lot. but we're going to go into dynamics, turn off gravity, and now we can simulate it, and you will see a couple of frames here. So for the final simulation, I believe I used like 20 million, you know, for the grid cells, but it might differ on your scene because of the scene value and everything. But for me, 20 million was what gave me this result, this one. So this is what 20 million, simulation does look like. It's still less, but that's what I did for the simulation. And right now, once we're done with our Phoenix sim, so we can go and go to our camera view. So you get these low quality sort of smoke in the preview, and that is not what you're going to get in the render. And it also, it's also related to how many cells you have. So you have a higher simulation. If you have a high quality simulation, probably like what, 20 million, you're going to get a lot of detail in the smoke. So it won't matter. It's just for the preview. But right now, once you're done with the simulation, what you want to do, if you want to increase and add a lot of smaller pieces, what you should do is you go back to your Tyflow, and I'm going to add a spawn operator here, and I'll go here. And what it does, it creates particles from the existing particles, but then what you can do is you can just go and add like a scale operator here, and you can add like a shape and set the shape to 3D and set it to chunks round, and we'll link it here. So these are the particles that are generated from the original particles, but we do want the spawn to be in this event because we want the dynamic particles to be able to create new particles. So we'll put it after the physics collision and everything. So now if I go and scale this up to like what, 400, you will see that we have a lot of other pieces. And the cool thing about this is you can go and set it to uniform and add a lot of variation and a lot of pieces too. So that's how I added the smaller pieces. But you can go into the spawn and set the offspring value to 2 and increase the number to 3 or even 4. So you're gonna have a lot of smaller debris, but that's up to you, how many or how much you want. But make sure you do your Phoenix simulation first, because if you do it after doing the spawn, it'll just take forever to simulate, because they're also going to simulate these smaller pieces. So it'll take a lot of time. First do your bigger pieces and then do the Phoenix simulation off of that, and then you create your smaller pieces, and just like that. All right, so for the lighting, what I did was I just select everything and make sure my renderer is set to Vray 5 I'm using, and I'll hit M, and I'll just right click and add a V-Ray material. And what I did was I'll just select everything and apply this to the V-Ray material. Okay, so now we got this moving off of that. We're going to the camera view, so we have all the pieces. Of course, the smoke simulation is a lot low quality, but I just want to show you guys how I did the lighting. I'll go into V-Ray Sun, and I'll add it from this direction. We want an environment, and then I will just select that and just move it here. So it is going to be bright. If I go into the V-Ray render view, it is going to be very bright. But what we need to do is we need to go to the environment. We'll set the exposure control to V-Ray exposure control and set this color to white. And now I'm gonna go and see here. Okay. So we can't see the pieces, the Tyflow pieces, and that's a very common thing that happens. So we'll go into Tyflow, and what we need to do is do nothing else and just add a mesh operator to all of your events, and that will basically make sure that you can render out your pieces. So if I go back here and have the progressive render of V-Ray, you will see that we have the pieces, but they're not casting a shadow because of the position of the light. So what I'll do is I'll stop this. I'll go back to perspective view, and I'll make sure the light is facing this direction. So I'll make this small, just like that. And now you will see that the light is actually, don't show this again. Okay. Go back to the camera view, and now you can adjust the position of the light based on how you want it. So just like that. All right, we can also go here and add like high quality, and you can see the shadow to be long or short or wherever you want the light to be, and then you can just go and place it there. All right, so we have a lot of pieces here, which I think it looks good when you have a lot of smaller pieces. I don't have a lot here, but still it looks good. So yeah, just raise your Phoenix simulation quality a lot and do it. And before you do that, before you go about your simulation, what you need to do is this simulation is very fast. So if you render this, it'll just be like just like that. But what you need to do is you need to go inside Tyflow. You can see we have a lot of pieces on the ground. You need to go inside Tyflow, and you need to Tyflow, right? Go to the retimer and enable it. And I believe I've used like what, 34% of the speed. I retimed it, right? So you will need a lot of frames. You can just hold Control and Alt and right click and drag so that they'll be very slow. And that's basically the real-time speed that I rendered, right? So it'll fall down, and make sure you do your simulation after you slowed it down. So if you want to do your simulation now, what you're going to do is you just turn off your spawn, and yeah, the speed is right. So you do your Phoenix simulation, high quality and everything. And once you're done with that, turn on your spawn once again, and yeah, everything will be good. And then you set up your lighting and your render setup. So for the rendering, we did nothing special. Bucket, I go for 2, minimum shading rate to like 10. Noise threshold, the lower this value, the less noise you're going to have, but of course it's going to take a lot of time. For the primary engine, I'm using Irradiance map, and I go with low and set this like 180. That's basically the render setting that I use. I rendered a 1920 by 1080, and this is the result that I got. Okay, so yeah, this is basically the gist of it, and most of it is just like playing around, getting the simulation right, getting the speed of the particles and the wall crumbling right, and it's just a lot of trial and error, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and hope you learned something from it. And if you do, make sure to go to my channel, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, like this video, comment whatever you missed. And if you want the project files for this and a lot of other cool tutorials, you're more than welcome to join my Patreon page and support me do a lot of these cool videos. All right, so this was today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Till the next one, enjoy working.